Don't for a minute think that the media doesn't know how to do it. Don't for a minute think that the governments don't know how to do it. That politicians don't know how to do it. They know how to do it, and they do it. They control information. There's a saying, if you can control information, you can control minds. People will be asking me, why did you write a book on indoctrination? You're a business mentor, wealth coach, you're a speaker. Why are you writing about indoctrination? I don't think a lot of people even knew what indoctrination meant. Like, people have heard the word indoctrination, but I think after I wrote the book on it, a lot of people have actually gone and researched what it is. People have suspected that they are being brainwashed by the education system. So indoctrination is actually just a form of brainwashing where you are instilling a sense of belief, typically a biased belief or a biased way of thinking, into somebody else. That's indoctrination. And there are many different types of indoctrination. There's religious indoctrination. You can literally get people to believe that the other side, people who don't subscribe to your religious beliefs, are bad, so bad that they should be killed. You can indoctrinate people to believe that they're superior, like it happened in the slavery times. White people were convinced, many white people were convinced that they were superior to black people and that black people should be kept as slaves, right? So you can see that in the colonialism era, so many people were convinced that they are superior because of racial identity. It happens in gender. You can see it in gender. You can see it in nationality. You look at the whole thing that happened with Jews and Germans, the Holocaust. You can actually convince good, ordinary, decent people to kill other people. You can brainwash them to do that. The reason why the indoctrination works is because the human mind is programmable. The human mind is programmable. So anyone that knows how to program the human mind can brainwash people. And don't for a minute think that the media doesn't know how to do it. Don't for a minute think that the governments don't know how to do it. That politicians don't know how to do it. They know how to do it, and they do it. They control information. There's a saying, if you can control information, you can control minds. So who controls information? Think about it. Governments control information. Media controls information. Educational institutions control information. So there is all different types of indoctrination. Religious, nationality-based, race-based, gender-based, color-based, and of course education-based, which is why when I wrote my book, Indoctrinated, how the conventional education system perpetuates conformity. Conformity is what? Everybody just doing the same thing. Mediocrity, never actually excelling, never really doing something that is of an incredibly high caliber, and indistinguishability. Just having nothing that is unique about you. Think about that. I always say to people, you think about it, just think about it for a minute. You look at, what's this on the cover? What you've really got is everybody looking the same. They've got their graduate hat on. It's like a conveyor belt. It's like a factory. Education system to me seems like a factory. It just produces workers by the millions. And these workers don't think for themselves. They're there to make the entire system rich. Make the corporation rich, look after the corporate overlords. Make the governments rich, pay more taxes. Make the banks rich by paying more interest, because a lot of these people will get into massive debt to do their degree. And even once they pay off that debt, it's interesting, in America, people have so much student debt, they can't even in Australia, a lot of people have so much student debt. Some people in the Western world, they can't borrow money from the bank to do their degree, so they end up borrowing money from their parents, so they make their parents poor. But even after they pay off the debt, which a lot of people never paid off, even after they pay off the debt, a lot of them will get back into debt just to buy that house and car. Think about it, right? And then they take 30, 40 years to pay off that debt. So imagine the amount of money that the banks and the governments and the corporations make. The corporations pay you a small fraction of what you're actually worth, and you have no time. That you're working for them, you're making them rich, you're making the governments rich by paying more taxes, and you're making the banks rich by borrowing money. All of this because the education system will not teach you how to be a capitalist. It doesn't teach you how to be an independent and critical thinker. It doesn't teach you how to be wealthy. It teaches you dependence on the system. And then all that happens is then they bring some spiritual and cultural leaders from the other side
who then start to preach the message of, you don't need to be successful, you don't need to be greedy, you can just be happy, be content, be simple, be humble. So now you've got, on one hand, you're being controlled from here. On the other hand, you're being indoctrinated by these spiritual gurus who are telling you that be content, right? Don't strive for anything, that there is, being successful is not important, being wealthy is not important, being a high performer is not important. So that's how people get brainwashed. And because the education system has never facilitated the ability to think critically and independently, people just listen to what they hear from everybody, and that becomes their identity. In the first page, you know what I write? 3 steps to indoctrination. You can indoctrinate anybody. You can brainwash anybody that is not self-aware and is not a critical thinker. How? Number 1, these are the 3 steps. You repeat the message over and over and over again. You hear it from society, you hear it from teachers, you hear it from the media, you keep repeating the message, and then what happens is it sinks into a person's subconscious mind and it becomes a part of their belief system. Second, if you want to indoctrinate somebody, you create a negative feeling in the receiver, typically a fear-based feeling, either fear, guilt, or shame. If you actually look at most forms of indoctrination, how they control people is through fear, guilt, and shame. So again, people who are not critical thinkers, they fall for it, they succumb to this. And the third, this is the most important step that they use, they then get experts to endorse this narrative. So all they have to say is, oh, well, these people are saying this, doctors are saying this, experts are saying this. They start putting that in the media, so you go, well, if experts are saying it, it must be true. And we don't question it. This happened to me in the wealth management industry as well. When I was working in wealth management, for many years, I didn't ask myself, where is this data coming from? A lot of the data that was given to us about financial markets, it was coming from institutions. It was coming from academic institutions. It was coming from corporates, fund managers. And at some point it struck me, how do I know this is true? That's what they're telling us. And we know that data can be easily manipulated. People can cherry pick bits and pieces of data and convince you that this is the truth and not show you all this other stuff. So that's why I'm really passionate about indoctrination. Right now, my message is, I want to wake people up. I want people to realize that just because you've gone to school and university and you work for corporate, don't make the assumption that you're aware. Don't make the assumption that you know how to think critically. This is not a disrespect. I'm not insulting anybody. What I'm saying to people is, it's okay to get educated, but if you're not a critical thinker, you're not an independent thinker, you're not self-aware, you're not educated, you're just indoctrinated. That's the message of the book. And I encourage people who suspect that they are being brainwashed to read this book. It'll open up your mind. It's all right? Done?